Welcome to Young Minds and Big Questions. Today on the podcast, we're responding to Sam Harris's video on why religion needs to be replaced. All right, welcome to Young Minds and Big Questions. So glad that you're here with us. Today we're joined by my beautiful and single co-host, Anthony Gabone.
How's it going? I am not single. At least I don't want to portray that message to the masses.
Don't lie. He is, and he's ready to mingle.
All right.
We also got with us our good buddy, been on the podcast before, Vinny.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be back.
Vincenzo, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. Not single like you, but, you know.
All right.
Vinny, very much married with a child.
Very much so.
Beautiful. Anthony is still single. Excellent. All right, man, we're excited today. We are stepping up to the plate again, taking on one of the biggest names in new atheism, Sam Harris. And we're going to kind of critique, give some pushback to a talk that he did in New York City in 2005. It's a video on YouTube, over 100,000 plays, and he discussed why religion should be replaced. And so we're going to play some, we're not going to get to do the whole discussion because it's over an hour long, but we're going to play some clips of this video, some of the things he says so you can hear his perspective, and then we're going to critique it. And so without further ado, gentlemen, should we dive in? Should we take on one of the, what do they call them, the four horsemen of new atheism?
He is one of the four horsemen, yes.
Yeah, it sounds creepy, but
why is it creepy?
I don't know.
I think it's pretty cool. Like he's one of the horsemen.
I mean, yeah, that sounds nice.
Horsemen always sound creepy to me.
Yeah, they do sound creepy, right?
It's never like a nice term. No.
Well, let's take him on. Let's battle Sam Harris. I mean, it's kind of like he's in studio with us. Am I right?
Yeah, totally.
Although it's via YouTube, but still, he's kind of here.
Same thing.
All right, so check it out. This is Sam Harris at his talk in New York City talking about why religion should be replaced.
What do our neighbors believe? Well, 22% of Americans claim to be certain, literally certain, that Jesus is going to come down out of the clouds sometime in the next 50 years. Another 22% think he probably will sometime in the next 50 years. That's 44% of the electorate. Now, of course, this belief does not exist in isolation. It's not an accident that 44% of Americans also believe that the creator of the universe literally promised the land of Israel to the Jews. This is in his capacity as an omniscient real estate broker. And these beliefs are knit together with a myriad of other beliefs, infatuations with the end of history, with apocalyptic prophecy. And these beliefs have geopolitical consequences. This is not just what people believe on Sundays. It is actually not an exaggeration to say that something like half of us, something like 44% of the American population, if they turned on their television sets and saw that a mushroom cloud had replaced New York City, they would see a silver lining in this cloud. Because it would be a portent to them. It would presage that the best thing that is ever going to happen is about to happen. The return of Christ.
So, Jared, do you believe that God is an omniscient, omnipresent, omnibenevolent real estate broker?
That's quite a title. I mean, let's dive into what he's saying here. I think Sam Harris is, I don't know. I agree with him on some points, and then I disagree with him on others. I think he's presenting a very particular type of theology of Christianity.
What do you mean that is right? Everyone believes that stuff.
Well,
right?
I don't. I wouldn't agree with that particular theology. But I think he's kind of characterizing all of Christianity, and maybe the statistics are with him, that the majority of American Christians do believe that, and
it's because of the Left Behind series.
I think that has a big pull for sure.
It's one of Jared's favorite films, the film series. He has posters all over his room.
He watches it every Saturday.
Yeah. He also often invites me and Vinny over, but we usually respectfully decline.
You guys, not respectfully, you just decline. No, Although I love Kirk Cameron from Growing Pains, I am not a fan of the Left Behind series, and that's for another podcast at another time. But I think from here's what I would say of his critique is, number one, I agree with him that there is some danger in people's theology that can play into real issues. So, for example, when your theology does say we believe that Israel has a divine right to this land, and therefore we don't care how they get that land back, God's given it to them.
They can treat other nations and other people groups however they want. We're going to support them. I do think that that's abhorrent, and I don't think that is grounded in Christian theology. Now, Christians are split on this issue, dispensationalists and covenant theologians. Which one do you land on, Jared?
I would land on covenant theology.
He said it.
Yes,
he said it.
Absolutely.
Oh man, live.
So I would agree with you, and I think he's painting one small picture, one small piece. And actually, this is putting my cards out there. But if you look at historical Christianity, I think historical Christianity would not agree with a lot of what he is saying. I think that's in the last 100 years that's become a theology that's emerged.
It's been prevalent. Okay.
That's been prevalent. So I agree with him to say, like, some of those beliefs taken too far could be really dangerous. And we've seen some of the abuses that have happened, but I don't think that that's indicative of the heart of Christianity or the heart of the gospel. And I think anyone that holds to the true heart of the gospel would say, even if you believe Israel has a right to the land, that's not by any means necessary. They shouldn't be able to kill, rape, and destroy the Palestinians just to get what God has given them. Like, to me, if you really understand the gospel, that's anti-gospel, even if you believe, hey, they still have a right to the land.
So, do you think his caricature of Christians' response to a nuclear strike on Manhattan is an accurate caricature?
Well, I don't think anybody would just come out and say, yeah, I'd see a silver lining in it. But I know from growing up in the church and hearing sermons after certain
events,
world events and natural disasters, that is kind of a view that people have. So I remember sitting in a service, and the pastor was preaching this message. It was right after 9/11, and it wasn't that he was saying that 9/11 was a good thing, but what he was saying was this was God pouring his wrath out on sinners, because 9/11 was, the buildings that were hit were all big business buildings, the Twin Towers specifically. They're all big business buildings that's filled with corruption. So it's God pouring out his wrath. And so that's like a terrorist attack. He also looked at a natural disaster. I don't remember if it was a hurricane, or a tsunami, or some sort of mix of that. But another thing happened and around the same time, and it took out this casino boat. So they were, out at sea, and it wasn't, when you're out at sea gambling, it's not illegal gambling, but it was gambling. He's saying, hey, these are people that God was pouring his wrath out on. So he was painting the picture of, it's a terrible thing, but this is like God using it to bring forth judgment. And people don't come out and say, oh yeah, I'd see a silver lining in a nuclear cloud covering New York City. But it is the reality that some people do look at it like that.
But that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I would agree with you, but...
Well, hold on, though. I don't necessarily think it's ridiculous to say, oh, people see a silver lining in something, so that's ridiculous.
Well, I'm talking about what he was saying in terms of God is doing this as a punishment for these people's sin.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But based on what Sam Harris said, I think he gives an unfair over-criticism to say, well, because Christians would look at something that is such a disaster, like let's say 9/11, that they would look at that and some part of them feel like there's a silver lining here. I think, well, that's the heart of hope in Christianity, is to say we believe in God as sovereign. We believe he's working all things. He's taking all bad things and bringing and making them into good. So there, I think the heart of Christianity says there's a silver lining in everything. And that actually, to me, is the hope, the reality that we have hope in something beyond ourselves. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's actually a strength. Now, I would disagree with the theology that he presents, which is, oh, if a nuclear bomb hit New York City, everyone would be going, oh, awesome, that means the end times are here soon, and great, we all get to get out of here. Certainly we wouldn't be saying that because we'd be dead, because we're basically in New York City.
All right, so let's move on to the next part of his talk.
Take another belief that we've all been pummeled with this debate about intelligent design, the idea that the machinery of the living cell is so complicated that it could not possibly have been generated through naturalistic processes. This should be genuinely troubling to us. This really is eroding the prestige of science in our culture. It is, your children could well be taught this pseudoscience in school, in biology class, one of these days. But it's also important to recognize that it's a bit of a red herring, because 44%, actually in the last Gallup poll it was up to 53%, something like half of us are creationists. Intelligent design is not what they're fancying. They believe that we were created from mud with divine breath sometime in the last 6,000 years. Adam and Eve standing in a garden with a talking snake and a hankering for apples. This is literally the vision of the creation of our species.
I have a hankering for apples.
What a line.
No, you don't.
That is a great line.
You have never eaten an apple in your life.
Oh, a hankering for apples. We don't hear that word used enough. I feel like
I've never heard that word in my life.
You haven't?
So.
Are you kidding me? I've seen grown-ups too.
I'm going to start using hankering more often.
Okay.
Anyway, I've got a hankering to answer this question. So what do you guys think? How do you respond to that?
It's interesting because he's right when he says that the majority of Americans don't even subscribe to intelligent design. They subscribe to young earth creationism, and those two things are very different. When they were trying to get intelligent design passed in Dover, for example, that thing that they were trying to get passed, that idea, is a lot different than young earth creationism, because intelligent design, Michael Behe believes in common descent. Do you think the average church-going America does?
And they certainly believe in an old earth.
Yeah, they certainly believe in old earth. They believe in common descent. The intelligent design just believes that there's certain aspects of creation or of biology that are irreducibly complex, and therefore they can't evolve through natural processes.
Right.
So one obvious critique is that he's whitewashing Christians. Okay, not all Christians hold to intelligent design. Not all Christians hold to young earth creationism. This is not a core, essential doctrine of Christian theology.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I wonder, if he's doing a poll like that, should the poll be taken from Christian theologians or the average person? I guess his idea is, hey, these ideas are dangerous because when the average person gets a hold of them, they have great impact.
Right.
And in that, I agree with him. And I actually do think, I'm not going to say young earth creationists are dangerous, but I do, if you've listened to our podcast before, you certainly know where most of us land, that I don't think it's biblical, and I certainly don't think science points that way. So I understand what he's saying, and I actually do resonate with the cause for concern.
And we would be there with him in his critique of these views, especially young earth creationism. We would be on his side of things there.
Yeah, because the majority of people couldn't defend that position biblically or scientifically.
Yeah.
They're just kind of indiscriminately going off of what they heard their pastor say.
Yeah, and what I don't like about Sam is that often he characterizes Christian theology. He caricaturizes it, and he does get this critique all the time. And look, if he walked into Wycliffe Hall at Oxford University and started talking this nonsense about Scripture, he would get laughed out of the classroom because he's uneducated in the area of theology. Very uneducated in that area.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely. He's broad brushing. He's taking it would be like us going into a world of science, or say a scientific conference, and polling the most ignorant people in America over scientific issues and going, you see, science isn't valid because 50% of the people say that they believe in this or they believe in that. Look how stupid science is. When they would go, are you crazy?
You see, I agree with you, but the problem is that these new atheists don't believe that the study of theology is an enterprise to be treasured or valued. In fact, Richard Dawkins argued that the theology departments of all of the major and top universities should not be there anymore. He doesn't think it should be there. So that shows where they're at in terms of their understanding. And he actually compares a degree in theology to a degree in fairyology.
Well, that stinks for us.
I would really like to get my degree in fairyology. That sounds like a good time.
So that's one reason why they're so ignorant in the area of theology, because they could care less about it. Even if you think that theology is stupid, if you're going to go around and critique theologians, at least argue on the level that they're at. You don't critique the low-hanging fruit. You have to critique the best version of your opponent's argumentation.
Yeah, and isn't that's true of both sides? And so much of the frustration from an atheist perspective, like if you listen to some of the videos that we've done with who's the guy, the new atheist or the young atheist, what's his name? He did a video that we responded to, like 12 reasons why Christianity isn't true, or anyway, a lot of his critique is Christians totally characterize atheism and attribute things to atheism that aren't necessarily true. So I think it works both ways, but in most of the videos we've done of these new atheists, like that seems to be the resounding thing, is this overcharacterization of all of Christians of being idiots and morons and believing just one small particular view of theology.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. Let's see what else he has to say about Christianity and the dangers of religion.
Or take another belief that really should just be a curiosity to us until you see its consequences in the world. That the Catholic idea that condom use is somehow immoral. This is a genuinely ludicrous idea. I can assure you that the powers of the human brain are insufficient to provide a good argument for this. But map this onto sub-Saharan Africa, where literally millions, something like 4 million people, die each year from the spread of AIDS. And what you have there are Catholic ministers literally preaching the sinfulness of condom use in villages where the only information about condom use is the representation of the ministry. I mean, it seems to me that the time for respecting beliefs of this sort is long past. This is genocidal stupidity. It is criminal negligence of a sort that we would not tolerate in any other institution. Yet the Vatican cannot be criticized to the degree that it should, because it's the Vatican, and there is a overarching taboo around criticizing religious faith.
Well, I think it's fine to use condoms.
Well, you're not Catholic, so we know that.
Well, I do think, I think recently, this was done in 2005, recently, Pope Francis actually said that if you're married and you can use a condom, so he came out in favor of it. The progressive Pope, hooray!
Why? But he's not in favor of it for people that.
Well, I mean, you in the understanding of the Catholic tradition.
Okay, so
Christian tradition in general,
would he be speaking specifically to Catholics? So he's speaking to Catholic believers. He's not necessarily saying, "Hey, here should be a policy for the whole world." Right? He's saying to Catholic believers,
right.
You shouldn't have sex outside of marriage,
yeah.
And if you're married, it's okay to use a condom.
I mean, but before this, their whole argument was, well, abstinence is the best way not to catch any diseases. Fine, but that's unrealistic, honestly. So you have to do everything you can to stop the spread of the disease.
But isn't there a distinction here, and this is where I think Sam Harris misses it, isn't there a distinction between what we are teaching people who are people of faith and then national health policies?
Honestly, dude, Pope Benedict went to Africa and said that they should not use condoms. I mean, that's horrible. I think that's atrocious. I disagree.
Yeah, no, that is. I see what you're saying, but when you're talking to people who aren't necessarily believers, and you also have to look at it and say, who else is going to Africa and like who's going and teaching them condom use and safe sex and how to prevent disease? Is the Catholic Church the only ones there? Then you really have to shut your mouth and you can't really comment on if they're saying abstinence is better, because nobody else is stepping up in that area where it's clearly a need. But if there's different views and the Catholic Church is saying, hey, this is our view on it, you shouldn't use it, I don't have that big of a problem with it.
Yeah, I
don't agree, but...
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't agree that the Pope should be saying things like that because of the level of influence he has over people in general. And that's why I say I think there's a difference. Like, if we're looking at a world health crisis of AIDS and going, okay, let's take religious moral views out of this. We have this issue of AIDS. How do we combat this issue? Because we know people are not going to all behave the same sexually. Okay, condoms are probably the best way to handle this issue. That's one area. Another area is, okay, I'm a pastor of a church, and I have people coming into my church that are Christians, and they're asking me, what does the Bible teach about sexuality? And as a pastor, I'm teaching them, hey, as a Christian, we should be abstinent until we're in a marriage relationship. Sex is for marriage, and that's what's important. I don't see why that is a dangerous thing. I think that is a healthy thing, as long as it's taught in the context of you're a believer, and here's what the Bible teaches to believers about sexuality and how it should operate. Now, if you're taking that message and applying it to everybody and going, no person should ever use a condom at all, then if that's what the Pope did, I don't know. But if he did, then I think that is incredibly dangerous, and it's overstepping your bounds, and you need to probably not even go there. And there's way bigger issues than using or not using condoms.
Well, I agree, but I mean, this has been a constant critique of the new atheists of the Catholic Church over and over again because it seems to be life-threatening. And this is something that a religious belief that they deem to be irrational right now has the potential to kill people, because of this erroneous belief. So I understand their frustration. But at the same time, Catholics make up half of Christians. There's still another half of 1.5 billion Christians who aren't Catholics.
But is there really any Catholics who are saying, obviously we're generalizing here, is there really any Catholics who are saying, hey, no matter if you're married or not married, what's most important is that you don't use a condom when having sex?
Yeah.
I mean, I assume their message is to say, hey, when talking about sexuality, it's designed for marriage.
Right.
So don't have sex before marriage.
That's the main kind of thing.
Right. And so what is Sam Harris's critique? Oh, the Catholic Church isn't a World Health Organization handing out condoms? Like, why is that their role? I don't understand. If they're teaching in the context of marriage, now I disagree that condoms are sinful, but even if they're teaching that in the context of marriage, that's not or shouldn't necessarily contribute to the spread of AIDS, right? Because you have a committed couple who's only having sex with each other, hopefully.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
We've all assimilated this idea that we should respect other people's religious beliefs. Your neighbor has the right to believe whatever he wants to about God and the moral structure to this universe. He has the right to believe whatever he wants to about what happens after death, and you should respect these beliefs merely because he believes them. Where else in our discourse do we play by these rules? When was the last time anyone in this room was admonished to respect another person's beliefs about history or geography or engineering or medicine? We do not respect people's beliefs. We evaluate their reasons. If my reasons are good enough, you will helplessly believe what I believe. That is what it is to be a rational human being. Reasons are contagious. If I came on this stage and said that the Holocaust never happened, you would be under no burden whatsoever to respect my beliefs. And we don't respect the beliefs of people who think Elvis is still alive. I mean, the people who make all those crazy pilgrimages to Graceland. These people do not get invited to sit on our boards of directors. They don't become presidents of universities. I mean, that is all well and good, except when you change the subject to God, and then all bets are off. Then the sky's the limit. You can be certain with zero evidence and respected for it. It is taboo to push the conversation into criticism of your beliefs. So what I'm advocating really, and what I advocate in my book, is a kind of conversational intolerance. We don't need new laws. We don't have laws against Holocaust deniers. All we need is a standard of intellectual honesty where people who pretend to be certain about things they're clearly not certain about receive some conversational pressure. I mean, this would all be accomplished if we treated everyone who spoke about God on the floor of the Senate as though they had just spoke about Poseidon. I mean, just imagine, we have all these hurricanes in the Gulf, and some senator gets it into his head that we should really be praying to Poseidon. I mean, this, after all, is his jurisdiction. the ocean is reclaiming our cities. Clearly, that would be the end of that person's political career.
I don't think so. Not with Trump on the rise.
Oh, gosh. Let's not go there.
What do you guys think about his statement that he kind of opened up with, though? That as far as religion, we can say, okay, your neighbor can believe whatever they want, but for other things, we don't do that. Do you agree with him?
I think we do have the right to believe whatever we want. And this comes back to, discrimination today. We always have these kind of debates about it. Do we have the right to be discriminatory or not? Do we have the freedom to do that even though it's harmful to people? I think Sam would agree that we have the right to do that, but we also have the right to think that person's ridiculously stupid or insane or horrible. So I think we have the right to believe whatever we want. We have the right to believe in Poseidon, but also have the right to think that you're crazy.
It seems, though, like he's arguing for this intellectual arrogance. Like,
yeah,
we should just dismiss people. Like, if we just dismiss people and arrogantly treated them as if they were insane and stupid, like
that's what Dawkins
believing
advocates for, though.
Poseidon. Like, I'm thinking to myself, what kind of a culture would that be?
Well,
How is that a
Jared,
solution?
If I walked up to you and said, I believe in Poseidon, or I think that Zeus, I've been praying to Zeus this morning, what would you think about me?
No, I would obviously...
You would probably back away slowly.
I think I would...
I'd sprint.
I think I would treat you respectfully, but
really,
two things. Number one,
I'm not
yes,
sure.
I don't know if I would treat...
Knowing you, I don't know.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, but him knowing you, like if it was a stranger walking up to him and said that, it would be a completely
I think I might. I don't.
the relationship
yeah.
you guys have.
I might be interested.
He can punch you right in the face because of you saying that.
I
because
have
you
and
have
I
that kind
will.
of relationship.
Well, no, but I understand what you're saying. We have to treat people with dignity and respect, and of course you have to do that. But at the same time, when you're believing things that are not helpful to culture, that hinder human flourishing, we have to do something about that. And in his mind, religion does not help human flourishing. And I think that's the kind of the argument that we have to get at and say, no, Sam, you're wrong. It's not religion that doesn't help human flourishing.
But he's arguing... Okay, so he's critical of religion at being this kind of segregation, kind of splitting every divisive.
Yeah.
If we all acted the way he did, do you know what kind of culture that would create? That would create a judgmental, self-righteous, divisive culture where if you don't agree with every intellectual idea that I have...
Look how he treats fundamentalists.
Right, you're some sort of moron, second-class citizen.
Yeah.
Like, that's the world he would create.
Yeah.
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 I just think his whole argument of, religion's the only place we do this. You can believe what you want to believe. That's crap. Look at everything. Look at you love politics. Look at like political issues now. Jared, you made a decision recently to go vegan because you think it's unethical
Amen.
about how we treat the earth, right?
Yes, I
did. So you decided we're not coming and going, you're in the minority. Get out of here, sir. That's ridiculous.
Actually, you guys were pretty harsh.
I was
towards
to
me.
you, yes. But I know a lot of other vegans. I know a lot of other vegans. I don't do that to you. You're the exception. Okay. Okay. It's only because I wanted to keep getting burgers with you. That's the only reason I did it with you. But you understand what I'm saying? Like he's saying we only do this with religion. That is a crap point. It's not even true.
The problem, and what's crazy is that Richard. A few years ago at the biggest atheist conference, it was in Washington. There was 30,000 atheists there. They're doing actually another one, I think, this year, and the Reason Rally, which I want to go to, guys. We should take a trip to the Reason Rally. Anyway, he was in front of 30,000 people, and he said that we have to treat religious people with disrepute. We have to make fun of them. That's what he said. So this notion that we're going to be mocking, according to his words, people who disagree with us, that's what he thinks is going to change people's minds?
Yeah. Well, isn't that almost the hope in if we play off of people's desire to be a part of community and to not have rejection,
right?
If we push that enough, eventually they'll come around.
They'll come around and they'll come to our side.
Right. Let's ostracize them so much to where eventually they go, okay, forget it. We're going to become intellectuals and agree with everything that you say. It's like, what kind of tactic is that? And what kind of world does that create?
I think if they wanted to do this right, if I was on their side, I would encourage honest intellectual discourse about these issues. Let's debate. Let's not run away from debates, Dawkins. Let's actually dialogue. Let's debate, and let's come to the best rational, logical position that we could possibly have. Let's not mock people for their beliefs. I don't mock Sam for his atheism, even though it's stupid. I'm gonna give him reasons why his atheism is wrong.
Yeah, but isn't like what you were saying, that he was saying there was no cultural benefit to religion, right?
Okay.
Like, isn't one of the main points that like psychologists and stuff will use about religion is that there was a benefit
prayer
of it,
is actually beneficial to people. Like,
well, that we know
yeah.
scientifically, prayer is beneficial,
Yeah.
whether it goes somewhere or not. But
yeah,
they would say religion was a crutch to help people.
there's some
like,
evolutionary reason why.
Give reason. So all of a sudden we're seeing him say, "Oh yeah, there's no benefit," but psychologists all over the place are saying, "Yeah, there was a benefit to it. Maybe it's not true, but the belief in a religion, there's benefits to it."
It's true. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the next point.
Let's see what old Sammy has to say.
So there is a conflict between religion and science. Many of us, many scientists, have papered over this conflict. And no less a body than the National Academy of Sciences, really our most elite scientists, has announced that there is no conflict, that religion and science ask different questions and represent different ways of knowing. Well, religion and science don't ask different questions, and they don't represent different ways of knowing. Every religion is making claims about the way the world is. If Jesus does come down out of the clouds like a superhero, Christianity will stand revealed as a science. That will be the science of Christianity. Every Christian will be able to say, "Told you so." I mean, here he is, look at his magic powers. And a sufficient display of magic powers, it would just take a few minutes, would convince any scientist of the claims of Christianity.
I feel like that's such an infantile critique of Christianity. I mean, that's such an infantile critique of the dialogue between science and religion. I think that it's right to say that science and religion ask different questions. Sir Peter Medawar, the Nobel Prize winner, once said in his book, Advice to a Young Scientist, that science is inept to answer the simplest questions of a child. Why am I here? What is the meaning? What is the purpose of my life? Those are questions that philosophy or theology can answer, that science can never answer. So this notion that religion and science try and answer the same question is not true.
Well, I think there's an overlap where people can take religion and make scientific claims, which is what we've talked about even in the last couple sessions in this podcast, taking and interpreting Genesis and where we came from. So there's an overlap there where you can say, okay, some religious people try to take this idea and make it a scientific claim, but to say that it's the same and you have to choose, that's ridiculous. Come on.
I agree.
Well, and isn't his very statement non-scientific? I mean, this whole point that he's trying to make is not a scientific claim that he can prove via hypothesis. He's making philosophical statements, right? He's trying. He's saying, science and religion, they don't answer the same questions. Religion isn't beneficial. All these type of things, which they're philosophical questions about life and the meaning of life and what's important. And to me, I don't even view his arguments, most of his arguments or his general statements, as being scientific statements. They're philosophical statements.
I think that's a great point, and I think one thing that Sam always fails to see, and most of the new atheists fail to see, is a distinction between the mechanisms that science discovers and the possibility for an agency that could have designed those mechanisms in the first place. What do you guys think about when he said that if God came down, then that would all of a sudden be a science?
Sam Harris could say that, but let's say, for example, God did come down, right? Jesus came down, and he spent 40 days around New York or whatever, and a lot of people were convinced, right? A lot of people were like, wow, there's scientific backing. Here he is. We can see him. We see his power. And then he leaves. He ascends, and he goes away. Now, let's fast forward history 2,000-3,000 years. Would people 2,000 years from now view that event, even if there was some historical evidence for it, with the same weight that we do now? Because I think that's a value, that's a adequate comparison of the resurrection,
right?
And the fact that 2,000 years ago we see some very strong historical evidence that Jesus did exactly what Sam Harris is saying he should do now, but yet because we're 2,000 years removed, somehow it's harder for us because we weren't there. We didn't see it with our eyes. But if you actually unbiasedly look at the evidence, there's some really strong evidence that Jesus did the very thing that Sam Harris is saying, please do, because then we'll believe.
Yeah, and I don't even think, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't even think it would be that easy for, if Jesus did come right now and did what he calls magic, I don't even think people would be convinced. Look at magicians we have now. Everybody is looking for, okay, well, how'd they do that? Because we know it's not really magic. We know it's some sort of sleight of hand. Yeah, people weren't convinced in Scripture. But look at a magician. Look at like Chris Angel or something. He has crowds of people around him, and he's doing these crazy things. People aren't like, oh, look at that. He actually has magic. It's like, wait, how did he do that? Like, let's try to figure this out. Let's try to see the secret that he does. Like, I would expect that response and the critical response rather than, wow, he's doing magic tricks.
Yeah.
Must be Jesus. Must really be divine.
Right.
I'm
I agree with
saying
you.
that about
I agree with you
Chris
because most of the new atheists would go in with the presupposition that supernatural things are impossible. So what would make you, if you're not even open to the reality of that, what would make you think that you would somehow believe it if you saw a supernatural thing in front of you? You would assume there's some rational explanatory power outside of supernatural divine agent that caused it. So I totally agree with you. I don't think they would be convinced.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got like a quarter of a way through this. Maybe next time we could do a little bit more of the video.
Yeah. Hope you guys benefited from this. This is Young Minds, Big Questions, taking on Sam Harris and his critique of religion and Christianity. And so we want to encourage you, continue to be thinkers, continue to engage with opposing views, and think through what you believe and what you think, especially if you're a Christian or even if you're not. Thanks so much. This is Young Minds, Big Questions. See you next time.